29 minutes to 11, you're with Lizzie. Now, Bjorn Brickell joins me back in the studio today from the morning wake up. He's just had, well, he'll tell us in his own words, but in my words, I'd say that he's had an adventure of a lifetime with Orphans Aid International celebrating 20 years, raising funds for this amazing organisation by climbing to Everest Base Camp. Good morning, Bjorn.
Good morning.
Well, give me some adjectives.
Start with adjectives. There's a lot. I mean,
does it swing like a pendulum? It's like the ones of mind-blowing.
it was pretty mind-blowing the whole way there, but really surprising at the same time because I didn't do much to my personality. I didn't do a lot of research before I left. Other than just sort of a quick Google on what clothes I'd need.
And you were getting ready. Like I noticed that you sort of used to appear around the building looking hot and sweaty a little bit, like you'd been out training, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of training in preparation for it to try and be fit and ready for the physical element because there's a lot of, like walking doesn't sound too difficult, which it's not usually. But you're walking very long hours.
Yeah, how many hours a day roughly on average?
All of the day.
All of the day. Like what's start time?
We'd get up in the morning, you'd have breakfast, and then we'd start walking.
What'd they give you for breakfast?
Well, you got to choose. And this is part of the surprising element. So I kind of had pictured, you're off into forging your own trail.
Yeah.
Making your own path.
Cutting your way through.
Yeah, and deciding which rock I want to jump from to the next one. And then you get there and realise a lot of people go this way. Okay. Therefore, it's very developed.
A well-worn path.
So I might have cinnamon scrolls for breakfast with an Americano.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so in the first few days of the Everest trek, so you start in a place called Lukla in Nepal. Mm. It's kind of, you fly into that, and that's kind of the lowest mountain village where most people start their treks from. And you can go to Everest Base Camp, you can head off to different other mountain base camps or the Annapurna circuit, and there's different places people go. But it's kind of the main highway of walkways. And it's very developed and accommodating for all the travellers coming through. So they have two big seasons each year, one at the start, sort of April, May, and then October, November as well, where people travel from all over the world to do this. Therefore, there's set up accommodation, hostels, sleeping arrangements, sort of
transport,
food halls. Well, the transport is either by foot or by yak.
Okay,
is really the only way. But it's amazing because anything that you come across up there has been carried there by either a person or a yak. Usually, all the building equipment, all the pipes, the electrical,
carried.
Roofing, iron.
So the pathway must be reasonably wide if there's a lot of people working on it.
Yeah, and in a lot of places, yes.
But they can't put any sort of vehicles in there at all.
No vehicles. Yeah. No, nothing. So there's no bikes. There's it's much too mountainous.
Okay.
So you kind of, Kathmandu, we did a 10-hour drive over some mountains and stuff. There's been a lot of flooding and landslides and stuff, which has taken out a lot of the infrastructure, bridges washed away in the last few months. So getting to, the town we needed to get to was a lot harder than it normally was. And then you take a quick flight from there over a couple of mountain ranges, and then you sort of start your walk. So you're sort of in this very populated area, but then there's a bit of a great divide between there and anywhere else. So if you get to the bottom town of Lukla, where you'd fly out of on this very, very short downhill runway that just sort of goes off a cliff, and then you hope the plane's going fast enough. If you're not taking that out, you've got to walk about 3 days to find another town, so it's quite isolated up there in the base of the Himalayas. But yeah, I was surprised at how developed it was. I guess I just had a different idea in my head of what we were getting into. But then it all makes sense, right? You've got so many people coming through. That people set up businesses. They've got to feed everybody. You've got to have the facilities to accommodate, that many travellers, climbers, explorers, and locals who live, in that area.
So I know that, you do like to keep fit, and I also know that you like to go bush and do all those sort of things.
Yeah.
But how did you go with the altitude? Because I can hear that can be a real challenge on the body.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. So, I mean, the walking's walking. If you've done big walks before, it's, you just kind of keep going. Humans are pretty good at walking. But, yeah, you're going uphill, obviously, gaining elevation each day. And, yeah, once you get past about 3,500 metres, probably about 10,000 feet, you can start to feel the effects of the altitude. Just because there's less oxygen in the air, I'm no physiologist or doctor or anything, but you definitely need oxygen to survive as a human,
do.
right? And as you get less and less of it, things just get harder.
Yeah.
And so once you get to actual base camp, which is about 5,364 metres, I think, you got 50% of the oxygen that you have at sea level. So it's very hard to recover. So you can't overexert yourself. So you've got to go at a very steady and slow pace. And you notice it so quickly. As soon as you sort of, say you stop to take a couple of photos of an amazing view, and then the group's kind of gone up a bit ahead, and you're like, I'll just try and catch up.
Yeah.
And you sort of jog or try, and you can't. Like
Wow.
you go for 10 metres and suddenly you're just like, man, I am feeling it, like straight away.
Wow.
So you got to keep yourself kind of at a very steady pace. You don't want to, if you overexert yourself, you put
Pay
yourself
for it.
at more risk too of developing kind of altitude symptoms and things like that.
Yeah. So as you're walking, what are you seeing? What's the terrain?
You start off in kind of quite similar to New Zealand in the bush, and lots of trees, and a lot of it did remind me a lot of the New Zealand kind of native bush. I mean, we found plants that are really similar to like manuka or kanuka, and then you had all these pine. I don't know what kind of variation, but you see a lot of pine trees in New Zealand and things like that. So, a lot of it was quite similar. And then as you get higher and higher, the trees start getting smaller and smaller. Then they turn to sort of a tussocky, harder wearing type plants.
Yeah.
Same with New Zealand. As you start to get up in altitude, South Island, start to get into the high country, more sort of grasses and things like that. And then as you keep going up and up, it all just dies away, and then it's just rock and ice and dirt.
And those things.
Yeah. So you get to see an amazing variety of terrain as you're going, and you just keep pushing up into higher elevations.
Was that mind-blowing?
Yes. The scale of it is a really hard thing to get your head around.
Because are you seeing Everest as you walk, or is it like...
Not for the first few days,
No.
but once you get to a place called Tingbushe, you can see it. But it's quite a hard mountain to actually get your eyes on because there's other mountains in the way.
Okay.
And so they'll be like, that's Mount Everest. Well, they're like that little tip
Yeah.
sticking over the top of the other ones. But
Yeah.
from a distance, it's actually quite hard to figure out where one mountain ends and the next one starts, or like which ridge is part of this. But you definitely can see it, and it's a pretty amazing sight to suddenly be like, wow, that's the tallest point on Earth. And
Yeah.
I'm staring at it.
So was it that you had to get to certain places by a certain time? Like, what time did it get dark? Was your accommodation booked? How did that all work?
Yeah, so we kind of, it's sort of, there's a regular kind of plan that most
Yeah.
people would sort of, you probably stop here or here
Yeah.
on this day. But it can be variable depending on how the group is going. And we had 17 people in our group, so it's
Wow.
quite a lot to manage, and maybe different paces that people are walking at, how far they might go in a day. So sometimes the faster people might arrive early afternoon, say, where we're going to stay, and then maybe an hour or two, or sometimes a bit later, some of the slower members might arrive. But it's very important to stay at your pace.
Yes.
And not just try and keep up with the group, because that's when you're gonna overdo it. And
Yeah.
then sort of once you push too much and go beyond yourself, it's very hard to recover and keep going.
Yeah.
So if you really
Did
go
you experience that?
only at the very end, we all started to feel the effects of the altitude over the last sort of 2 days. It starts with the headaches, like a sort of a brain fogginess and a lack
Sounds
of
like COVID.
clarity. It's very, very similar kind of symptoms. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And you get very congested just from the dust and everything on the trail. And different people feel in different ways. Some people get nauseous but dizzy, but lightheaded due to the same thing, lack of oxygen. And you get tingling in your fingers, and then you start losing your appetite, which
Wow.
then makes it harder because you're not eating, so you're not getting the fuel to keep walking. And it starts to compound. But you just got to try and sort of keep an eye on it. Everyone talks about their symptoms, so the guides and things can keep an eye on you, because there's a few things they have to watch out for. And if you start developing those, they may have to. The only really way to fix altitude sickness is to go lower.
Okay.
So they just head you back down the mountain.
Yeah.
And that's basically you. So, yeah, we just try and keep eyes on things. And it got pretty hard the last 2 days, really were, throbbing kind of headache. You just, every step sort of jars your body a little bit. And
because how many days was the trek?
it's about 7 up. And then we came down in about 2.5.
Oh, okay.
We were racing coming down.
Yeah.
And they were some big days.
Yeah.
But it's sort of weird because as you go lower, you always get stronger. Like you're feeling your strength coming back to you as the oxygen's getting better to breathe and you start moving quicker. And so, yeah, it was quite a push near the end to battle through it.
Yeah. So is it something you would recommend to people?
I definitely, if you ever get the chance or you love the outdoors, you want to explore some amazing country and see some incredible sights, the Himalayas are just immense. Everywhere you look, it's so large, and then seeing yourself in that environment, there's a lot to think about, in terms of, I don't know, your place in the world. I find it's a very spiritual place, and that's a common thing amongst people and cultures everywhere, mountains and people.
Yes.
And God.
Yes.
And the interaction of creation and the creator and where you fit in that story and everything. So I think for a lot of people, there's more going on than just the walk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, well, thanks for giving us a snippet of your big adventure, and great to see that you're back home safe and sound. Bjorn Brickell, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you can catch all our interviews on Star. See you next time.